Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to the Somerville Zoning Board of Appeals meeting of Wednesday, October 16th, 2024, and it is 6:04 p.m. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, the meeting of the Somerville Zoning Board of Appeals will be conducted via remote participation. A recording of these proceedings can be accessed at any time using the registration link at the top of the agenda. There are, joining us tonight is our Vice Chair, Ann Brockelman, Ann Fullerton, and Brian Cook. I am Susan Fontano, your chair. And we have a few staff members joining us tonight as well. From the Planning, Preservation, and Zoning, we have Andrew Graminski, Emily Hutchings, Steve Carey, and as we go, and also Madison Anthony. And then when we open up a couple of the cases, we have some other city people joining us as well. So without further ado, under general business this evening, we have to approve two sets of meetings from the past. Ann Brockelman is chairing, clerking for us tonight. Ann, could you please take care of that? Mike's not on.
Sorry
Thank
about
you.
that.
No problem.
I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of September 4th, 2024.
May I have a second? Seconded by Ann Fullerton. All in favor, please say aye. Brian Cook,
Aye.
Ann Fullerton,
Aye.
Ann Brockelman,
Aye.
and Susan Fontano, aye. Let the record show September 4th, 2024 minutes are unanimously approved. Next, please.
Next set of meeting minutes, I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of September 18th, 2024 as submitted.
Second.
It's frozen.
Chair Fontano appears to be frozen.
Oh, geez.
We see you, Chair Fontano.
Can you hear us? Oops. Let's give her a minute.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I apologize. Ann, you made the motion on September 18th. Do we have a second, please?
Second.
Seconded Ann Fullerton. All in favor, please say aye as we go around. Ann Brockelman,
Aye.
Ann Fullerton,
Aye.
Brian Cook,
Aye.
and Susan Fontano, aye. Let the record show September 18th approved unanimously. The next two cases, new cases this evening. I'm going to turn over, well, it's 44 Josephine Ave and 41 Willow Ave. We're going to open them, but we're going to continue them. Excuse me, liaison, Mr. Andrew Graminski, to what date?
November 6th.
Thank you so much. Ian, do you have that?
Yes. Do
Okay.
I open
So
them?
Ian, do each one individually. Open 44, then continue, then 241 Willow and continue.
Okay, 44 Josephine Avenue, apartment 2. We're opening this case, number ZP 24-000086. Whitney Larson and Philip Schaffnacker seek to extend an existing non-conforming projecting porch in the neighborhood residence in our zoning district, which requires a special permit finding. I make a
Thank you.
motion.
Wait a minute. Excuse me, Ann Fullerton. Yes, may I help you?
Yes, Madam Chair, I need to recuse myself from this case.
Okay. And also, you're going to recuse yourself at 241 as well, for the record?
Correct.
Okay, all right. For the record, Ms. Brockelman?
Yes.
You open that. May I have a second, please, on the opening? Brian?
I'm sorry, what am I seconding?
Oh, it's open. So I'm sorry, I got confused. We're gonna, it's open. Now we're gonna continue it. So,
So-
okay, so in the matter of 44 Josephine Ave, we are gonna continue it till November 6th. May I please have a motion from the clerk, the vice chair?
Yes, in the matter of 44 Josephine Avenue, I make a motion to continue this case to November 6th.
Second,
Thank you. May I have- Seconded by Brian Cook. Let the record show, we only have 3 voting members, which is fine for a continuance. And that is Brian Cook. Say aye.
aye,
Susan Fontano, aye. And Ann Brockelman,
Aye.
aye. Let it show that it's continued till November 6th. Next case is 241 Willow Ave. Again, let the record show that Ann Fullerton is not voting in this case right now. Ann Brockelman, motion?
Yes.
Opening?
241 Willow Avenue, case ZP 24-000079. Tony and Elizabeth Malanding seek to further extend the existing nonconformity for the required rear setback in the neighborhood residence NR district, which requires a special permit finding.
Thank you. We're gonna continue that as well till November 6th. Due to lack of a quorum. We have to vote on that. Ann Brockelman,
In the matter of 241 Willow Avenue, I make a motion to continue this case to November 6th.
second,
may I have a seconded by Brian Cook? All in favor, please say aye. Brian Cook,
aye,
Susan Fontano, aye. Ann Brockelman,
Aye.
let the record show it's been approved. November 6th, next meeting. Continue. Thank you. We're gonna bring Ann Fullerton back. We have a quorum. And our first case that we're gonna hear right now is 9 to 15 Taylor Street. Ann Brockelman, could you open that for us, please?
Yes, 9 to 15 Taylor Street, CBA case ZP 24-000015. Taylor Mystic LLC seeks relief from the minimum parking requirements in the urban residence zoning district, which requires a special permit.
Thank you.
This is Andrew
evening.
speaking through you,
Yes.
Chair Fontano. If you are the applicant, please use the raise hand feature and we will promote you to panelist. I see a Garrett Innes. I am going to promote you at the moment.
Hello,
Hi, welcome.
thank you.
For the record, would you state your name and address and what you have to
Ye-
tell us tonight?
Yep, Garrett Innes, 14 Bradley Street, Somerville, Mass. I'm here because we're requesting relief for 10 parking spaces for a 34-unit project. We are providing 20 spaces on site, along with 4 spaces on the street that fulfills 24 parking spaces. And that's the extent of what we are requesting relief from. We are also providing 15 bicycle parking spaces. We originally had like 4 on there, and the city requested that we provide more. And so we have accommodated that to 15 bike spaces.
And what is your role, Mr. Enos? Who
the
are
owner,
you?
owner.
You're the owner. Okay, thank you. Okay, so, what do you want to tell us? Anything else?
No, I mean, I think that's about it. I mean, if you want to, if you want to see what the project looks like, I can certainly share a screen. But otherwise, it's really just 10 spaces of relief for the project.
Um,
Because it's outside of
No.
the transit zone.
Yeah, and, so normally you would have been required to have 34. And
Correct.
you're doing 20 plus the 4 on the street.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Is there anyone here from the public, Mr. Grominski, that would like to speak to this matter?
This is Andrew speaking through you, Madam Chair. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, please use the raise hand feature and we will allow you to speak. Chair Fontano, I'm not seeing anyone with their hand raised at this time.
Okay, great, thank you. Let's leave that open for a couple of minutes and take it to the board. Does anybody on the board have some questions or anything they need clarified? Are you ready to vote immediately? No? Ann Fullerton and Brian Cook, hands are up. Ann, go ahead.
Okay. My question is for staff. Staff, is there any approvals that have to go through UDC for this project? Or is it completely as of right and not required for UDC?
Hi, this is Madison Anthony from staff speaking. I was the case planner for this project. No, there was no UDC requirement for this case.
Okay, and there was no special permit through planning, otherwise this is an as of right case except for this request, correct?
That's correct. This is the only not non-compliance issue for this case.
Okay, thank you, Madison.
You're welcome.
Mr. Cook?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's just a reminder, actually, to my colleagues on the board that contained in the staff memo are 2 conditions regarding mobility management plan that we need to include in the language of any motion if we're seeking to approve the requested special permit.
I'm sorry. On the summary proposal section, Brian?
No, in the staff memo,
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
down at the
So,
end, it's the very last
Yeah.
page. There's a set of permit conditions.
Yes,
I just want to emphasize
Oh.
that there are 2 that are not the normal permit conditions, which are the public record and validity, but rather there's mobility conditions that
let me see.
need to be incorporated into.
I see it. How is that accomplished? Do we know, staff? That's new for us, I think. Madison?
Yep, Madison speaking again. This is something that is accomplished on mobility and ISDs, and they submit this information, I believe, to mobility, and ISD checks for compliance.
Is this relatively new? Is this new? I don't think I've seen it before.
So, anytime that there is a mobility management plan that the applicant volunteers, steps with, we include it as part of the condition when it comes to reducing parking.
Okay,
Madam Chair, I believe we've had cases in the past that have included
have we?
voluntary management mobility plan
Yeah,
conditions. Since they're voluntary, they want to incorporate those conditions, those as conditions.
Right.
in
Oh,
special
yeah.
permit.
Yeah, I think it's good. So you're just making everybody aware that there's part of the approval.
Yes, I didn't want them to be missed as part of,
All right,
decision.
thank you. Yeah, good. That's good. All right.
Madam Chair,
We are, so when staff tells us we have to specify sometimes specifically while we're approving something, it's because it's in the TOD, right? Analysis, yeah. Okay, beautiful. All right, who was saying something? Was it you, Ann? Was that your voice? Yes, Ann Brockelman?
yes, it looks like, you know, the applicant's done due diligence. It would be nice for the record, you know, since this is recorded for that, for Mr. Ennis to go through and just summarize, you know, his parking study, the results of the parking study. I know all the documents are submitted and we have them.
Yeah,
Yes, this is a public hearing.
hearing, yeah.
Go into also talk about your mobility management plan, right? How does that, just summarize the things that you're doing to say that this is possible.
Yeah, so we hired a traffic engineer, did traffic counts on all the surrounding streets. There's like just hundreds of pages of data on that. It's crazy. And then we completed the TIAS and the Transportation Access Plan and a management mobility plan as well for this project. And our traffic engineer found that there was, you know, minimal to no impacts on traffic, given this, given the amount of parking relief that we're, you know, seeking. And that's pretty much what that came down to with the actual traffic. For the parking lot, you know, we had to conform to pretty strict standards for the dimensional regulations in Somerville. And all these spots adhere to those regulations. We originally proposed 4 bicycle station spots at the property, and you know, staff came back to us and said, listen, you know, we want more bike spaces. So we added as many as we could and made that to 15, and which I think is pretty sufficient for a project of this size. And included that, like a third of those are long-term parking spaces as well, which are covered. And that's, you know, pretty much sums up the project. You know, there's a bus stop right at the end of the street, about half a block away, which provides access to, you know, the T. And then the T is also a 15-minute walk away as well.
What company did you use for the traffic study?
Bayside Engineering,
Thank you.
based out of Woburn.
Good. Yes, Ann Fullerton?
Madam Chair, through you, Mr. Olness, can you please elaborate on any impact study that your traffic engineer did about increased parking density in the neighborhood if those extra 10 spots were to be absorbed into street parking for any reason?
Yeah, I
And
mean,
the
he said it would be to have a minimal, if any, impact on the surrounding streets. Also, the other side of Taylor Street, there is no houses. It's a big apartment building, and they park underground on the other side on Temple Street. So there's only 2 or 3 other houses on the whole street. So, you know, most of the time it's pretty empty on that street. And the surrounding streets, every house has, on Sydney Ave, I believe, every house has a driveway. And yeah, I mean, we had a couple public meetings and there was really no pushback on the parking. And yeah.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have a question or a comment for Mr. Anus? No? All right, so at this point, I'll ask Mr. Gramsci again. Did anybody from the public raise their hand?
This is Andrew speaking. Not at this time, Chair Fontana.
All right, great, thank you. Also, then let's move on. Are you folks ready to vote?
Chair
Yes.
Fontana, real quick,
Yes.
if you don't mind,
Yes. Yep.
just make sure that you formally close the public testimony.
Yes, I will. I'm just trying to do something here. I got distracted. And I want to make sure this doesn't happen again. Let's see. There we go. There, my house phone's out of order and I'm like freaking out trying to get it fixed. Okay, so seeing nobody else has their hand raised for public comment, we'll close the public and open it to the board for a motion to take our vote. Ms. Brockelman,
Yes, in the matter of 9 to 15 Taylor Street, I make a motion to approve the special permit for relief from the minimum parking requirements in the urban residence zoning district, with the conditions in the October 10, 2024 staff memo, which includes the mobility management plan, and transit information board, bicycle accommodations, and pedestrian-friendly design strategies as described. So all that is in the staff report.
report. Thank you, Ms. Brockelman. Okay, all in favor of approving 9 to 15 Taylor Street, ZP 2400000015, please say aye when called upon, or nay if you don't. Brian Cook?
Sorry, Madam Chair, did we have a second?
Oh, thank you, guys. I don't know what I'm thinking about here. Seconded, please, by somebody?
I'll second it.
Oh, thank you, Brian. Seconded by Brian Cook. Brian Cook. Vote
Aye.
aye. Susan Fontano, aye. Ann Brockelman,
Aye.
Ann Fullerton.
Aye.
Thank you. In the matter of 9 to 15 Taylor Street, let the record show it was unanimous for members voting all in the affirmative. Good luck, sir. Thank you. Ann, you lit up. Did you want to say something? Thank you. Bye-bye. Next case. There we go. Thank you. All right. Next case is 2 Village Terrace.
Chair Fontana, this is Andrew speaking. I see
Yes, sir.
Michael Bell and Elizabeth Suter with their hand up. I'm going to promote them to panelist.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Hello.
sorry to interrupt again, but do we need the case to be opened first?
Yes, 1 second. 1 second. The clerks, I see our vice chair's clerking tonight's getting ready for us. Let me see something here. Okay, 2 Village Terrace. Go ahead, Miss Ann.
Yes, 2 Village Terrace, case ZP 24000056. Village Terrace Condominium Association seeks an administrative appeal of a code violation notice filed number 23-018998, issued by City of Somerville Inspectional Services regarding a chicken coop.
Thank you. So we have Michael Bell and Elizabeth Suter here. Also, do we have somebody from Inspectional Services joining us tonight?
This is Andrew
Mr.
speaking.
Kaminsky? Yeah.
Through you, Madam Chair. I believe Nick Inta planned on attending. I don't see him at the moment. I'm looking through the attendees just to see if he's in the public. I
Yeah,
don't see him at this time.
all right, you check that
We
out.
have
and
reached
we'll-
out to him,
Yeah.
FYI, so we'll make sure we notify you when, if he does, come in for this case.
Thank you very much. Hi, guys. Welcome.
Hello.
Right. So tell us what's going on.
So we have I'm Michael Bell. I'm president of the Village Terrace Condominium Association. We have a chicken coop located in an easement that we received from the development of 35 Dane Street. 35 Dane Street was a development that took more than 4 or 5 years to complete because it went through multiple issues during the development and had to be built essentially twice. During that process, our land got contaminated from hazardous waste that was dumped on it while we had chickens. Eventually, when the kind of the building process finished, we had a specific area designed for our chickens, which used to be in our backyard, to be placed on brand new soil in the easement that is exclusively ours on 35 Dane Street's property. The notice that we received from ISD says that the chicken coop is located basically on a bunch of property lines. It's not clear what's the front line or the side line. We have some kind of disagreements on what that is considered with ISD. But in general, I think this is more of a hardship case than it is a property line setback. And kind of the last half of our submittal documentation kind of shows all the problems that we dealt with the contamination during the building process. So kind of in summary.
Okay. All right. So you're on Village Terrace.
Village
Yes.
Terrace, yeah.
It was originally on 35 Dane.
No, the chicken coop, we've
Whose
had
chicken coop is it? It's yours.
ours.
It's ours.
Yeah, it was
That's
located
right.
in our backyard before the
Right.
development of 35 Dane.
Okay. And then how did it get moved?
So the developer of 35 Dane ended up washing all sorts of solvents and paints
Okay.
in our backyard,
Yeah, all right.
contaminating our backyard. And then
Right.
we had them remediate part of the yard that is now an easement of ours in the 35 Dane area that is exclusively to Village Terraces. And so that's how we ended up where we are today.
All right. Okay, great. All right. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak to this issue of 2 Village Terrace?
Chair
Mr.
Napolitano,
Gurminski?
this is Andrew speaking through you.
Yeah.
I see 2 hands at this time, excuse me, Frederick Hirsch. I'm going to allow you to speak.
All right. Mr. Gurminski, we're going to do the timer, please.
Oh, yes.
Okay, 2 minutes.
Looks like,
And
hold on a second. I
Take
just
your
got to
time.
make some changes to
yeah,
the settings. Mr. Hirsch, we'll get to you in a second.
anyone who speaks tonight that's out there listening on any case, when you come on board, would you please give your name and address for the record? Thank you so much.
All right, it looks like we got the timer up. So
Fantastic.
Mr. Hirsch, I'm going to allow you to speak.
Good evening, Mr. Hirsch.
Hi, I think I unmuted myself. Did I succeed?
You are all
Yes.
set.
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect.
I just want to speak for about 15 seconds to say that I too live at Village Terrace and I see frequently families with very young children coming to visit these chickens, and they're a resource for the whole neighborhood. And I hope you will understand the circumstances for why they are there. That's it.
Okay, thank you. And whom else do we have out there?
This is Andrew speaking. Next, we have Oliver Turner, allowing you to speak.
Mr. Turner?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm speaking on behalf of the owners of 35 Dane Street and the owners of the land beneath the chicken coop. So this land is subject to an easement in favor of 2 Village Terrace. We actually learned the chicken coop shouldn't be located where it is when we contacted the city to deal with persistent rat problems in the area near the chicken coop. Unfortunately, the chickens' feed and droppings are attracting rats, and both city and private pest control confirmed it's an issue. And even a casual observer like us can see scratches, markings, and droppings. As I understand it, there are 3 relevant matters here: the rules of urban agriculture ordinance, the rules for accessory structures, and the Board of Public Health Regulations. because it's more of it's a public health issue, not just zoning. And they all presuppose that the ownership and responsibility of the chicken coop should be someone of the, one of the dwellings on the lot. It's not on the lot. Unfortunately, this is black and white. The land's owned by 35 Dane Street and 2 Village Terrace only benefit from an easement. In their notice and the response, they say that the chicken coop should be permitted because it is allowed for purposes for which backyards are commonly used, and they argue that includes chicken coops. But whether or not chicken coops are commonly found in backyards, we don't live in a city where zoning is decided by private easement, irrespective of city zoning. If the easement allowed for a 50-story hotel, they obviously couldn't build one. So everything needs to be subject to zoning law, and the chicken coop, unfortunately, should be subject to that too. The accessory dwelling structures says that they should be built 3 feet away from any lot line, which unfortunately they're not. So in summary, the urban agricultural ordinance, accessory structures, Board of Health were all carefully written to balance the interests of 2 Village Terrace who want to keep chickens and us as neighbors of 35 Dane Street who are being negatively impacted. Granting a variance would harm 35 Dane Street for the benefit of 2 Village Terrace, and the right balance here is for them to have a chicken coop on their land 3 feet away from our lot lines per the ordinances and your staff memo. Thank you.
Oliver, you said you were speaking for 35 Dane. Is that where you live? Is that your address?
That's right. Yeah, I got sign off from our neighbors here, but
Yeah.
unfortunately I submitted the comment a bit late, so I couldn't provide that in writing.
Okay, and thank you so much. And is there anyone else, Andrew, at this moment?
Yes, I see Cassia Silva allowing you to speak.
Good evening. Cassia, can you hear us? Andrew?
This is Andrew speaking. Cassia, you are unmuted on your end.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, so I'm Cassia Silva. Hold on for the train. I'm the grandmother of one of the kids who, once in a while, walk there to appreciate the chickens.
What is your address?
I'm at 34 Dane.
Okay, thank you.
So for us, it was like an entertainment. For me, at least, was an entertainment for my grandchild. I really appreciated having them there. I was not aware of an issue behind the chicken coop, but I vote for the chickens. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
This is Andrew speaking. I don't see anyone else with their hand raised, Madam Chair.
Okay, let's keep that open for a couple of minutes. Okay,
Madam
yes.
Madam Chair, I have a recommendation. We heard from Nick Antovica that he's driving home and should be home in about 10 minutes.
Good.
Staff recommend just maybe taking a quick 10-minute recess at this time to give Nick time to come and be able to speak on behalf of ISD if you would like him to. But it's at your prerogative, of course.
Well, we'll see how we run. I was gonna pause on the public portion for a few minutes and ask the board if they had some questions that they could speak to the applicant.
Sure.
And if
We just wanted to bring it up just
Yeah.
so, give
Yeah,
us some,
I don't-
he can
yeah,
come
I don't-
since he.
Okay, I don't want to
this is in
waste
their
the
realm,
10 minutes. Yeah.
some of the technical
Uh,
questions.
Yeah. I had a question that I'd like to ask. How many coops do you have? How many chickens and coops do you have?
We have 3 chickens. Kind of during the development of 35 Dane, 2 of our chickens died. One we had actually a necropsy on that showed it died of cancer, which was primarily in the solvent area and paint that was dumped in our backyard. We had replaced them. They're about 4 years old, but we've always had 3 chickens in the coop.
We have just one coop,
One coop.
Okay.
like fully.
And
fully rat proofed, I guess. Like we keep cameras in there to monitor the rats, to make sure there's no rats getting in the coop. And we've multiple times had the city come out and confirm actually that the coop is not the cause of the rats. They believe there's so many rats in our area actually due to the train tracks providing kind of a rat highway to and from the trash cans of the neighborhood.
I noticed one of the points that people are raising is the 3-foot clearance from the line. Do you not have any room that would allow you to move it further on your property and still be in the right, zoning from the house and the gates and all that stuff? Have you looked into that possibility?
We have. So when the dumpster and solvents were dumped on our property, they couldn't excavate the soil deep enough because it runs into a Coltech system, an underground water catch system. And so the chicken coop is placed on the only area that isn't on our 2 Village Terrace Coltech system or 35 Dane Street's Coltech system. And then they were able to dig down 3 feet or so and actually remove all of that contaminated soil and place new soil on top, which is now where the chicken coop lies. So anywhere else the chicken coop goes, they wouldn't have direct contact to soil. They would have to be completely raised above ground, which was kind of infeasible due to the contamination that the developer did on the property.
Okay, all right. Does, yes, Ann Fullerton?
As a follow-up to your question, Madam Chair, can you tell us how big the easement parcel is? What the dimensions are?
Off the top of my head, I think it's roughly 20 foot by 15 feet.
It is defined in our
low resolution. I'm looking at the easement document, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't able to find it on the appendix, and the easement plan doesn't really show it. It's a different easement.
Yeah, there's a number of easements. I'm looking.
it would be up here. Keep going up. Oh no, maybe it would be sorry, go down here. Right.
I think it's roughly 18 by 18 or so. Well, it is written in the easement document. Oh, there it is.
Yeah, it's
This
19
oh yeah,
4
yeah.
inches by 22 8 inches.
Okay, thank you.
And it directly abuts the railroad track as well, which is one of the problems from the RAP perspective.
Yeah, we've actually dug out, when they dug out the ground, we put in chicken wire underground and then cement to make sure that like the rats couldn't get in. We don't want them affecting obviously our chickens or our food quality. So we're very vigilant about the rats.
Okay. And as this situation escalated as of, more so lately than it was back, when they first, let me see what I saw the dates and stuff of what happened. So is it more prevalent now with the rodents?
So what we determined the cause was there was another neighbor at 41 Dane Street that had trash cans that were completely eaten through. And when the rats would take trash out of there, they would run through Village Terrace, run around the chicken coop, and dive under the fence into the railroad tracks. And we were seeing like chicken wings. I know it's weird, but chicken coop, but chicken wings were just littered in our backyard that were taken out and strewn from these trash cans. And once 41 Dane Street finally had a replacement of trash cans, we actually saw the issue get significantly reduced. There's still rats all around the area, but it's significantly reduced once those trash cans were replaced.
Okay. All righty. Anybody else have a question? Yes, Brian Cook.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have first a comment, which is, I think, needs to be reiterated that unless I'm wrong, the rat problem is not a zoning problem, and therefore it's not before us. Whatever it may be as a cause, it's only the zoning question and the violations reported by ISD that are the problem. And we should maintain a focus on that.
That,
Um,
right, thank you.
But I do have a question for the folks at Two Village Terrace, which is, am I correct in understanding that when you reached an agreement on easement 3 in the easement plan, it was understood by the developer of 35 Dane that your use for that easement was going to be a replacement for the place where you had your chickens?
Yeah, that's correct. In fact, the remediation and the dirt that was put there by the developer of 35 Dane Street, including high quality compost as kind of the base layer for the chicken coop. So it was built for chickens where they are today by that developer.
If I may follow up through you, Madam Chair.
Yes, please.
There's no language in the easement document or in the easement documents to suggest that. However, did you negotiate that as part of the agreement on the easements, that would be a use of the easement?
Yeah, that's correct. We specifically said we want to be able to use the yard for anything that we would have in our backyard. And we've had chickens since 2017. And the building permit, I believe, on 35 Dane Street wasn't issued until 2021 or 2022. So the chickens have been there before any residents have moved into 35 Dane Street. I mean, open houses and tours, there was clearly chickens there where they reside today.
And yeah, I would say the chicken coop has been in its current location since 2020. Because our current chickens moved directly into that new coop. And we got them in August of 2020.
And if I may ask one more question, Madam Chair.
Please.
Through you, through the folks at Two Village Terrace. When you were presented with the code violations that included the zoning violations, did you communicate with inspectional services about how you could make adjustments to either location or the orientation of the coop and the run to try to address those deficiencies that they found?
Yeah, I reached out about 5 times and didn't get a call back or communicate with anybody. I think the issue is complex enough from an easement perspective of whose lot line is it? Is it, if we have items in that lot line, is it abutting Village Terrace's lot line that then is an issue, or is it abutting 35 Dane Street's not lot line, but easement line? Because they're kind of different things. And so it's just there's a number of factors there where it's not very clear. The other factor is the ISD determining that, or saying that the front of Village Terrace is on Village Terrace, whereas I think the zoning rules and previous ZBA rulings show that it's on parallel to Village Street, which then determines whether the chicken coop is in a front yard or a side yard or a setback requirement on top of that. So there's enough items in there that it was not very clear on what is what.
Yeah, and we did attempt to contact them many
Yeah.
times to try and figure
Eventually,
out.
we said, well, we need to talk to somebody else, and this was the zoning, the ZBA board that was the option.
All right, thank
Okay.
you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Brian. Anybody else have a question? Both Anns. Ann Brockelman, go ahead.
I guess I'm still having trouble understanding the lot plan. There are many blurry graphics. So I don't fully understand dimensionally. I mean, I see your narrative where the coop is in relation to the easement. Maybe I'm the only one having trouble. My question is, are you able to move it 3 feet? If we just say it needs to be 3 feet from the lot line, from any lot line, are you able to move it?
So as mentioned, the soil everywhere else is contaminated. And so this was the area that was remediated by the 35 Dane Street developer so that the chicken coop can be on top of it and not have contaminated soil. You can kind of see if when it rains in that backyard, there's like oil and slicks that come to the surface because of the amount of dumping that occurred. This is outside of the remediated area. So the pushback
Is
to
there a
move.
plan? Is there a plan you can show and talk us through remediated easement? I am looking at your documents, but I think I could use a little help.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm looking at them too, Ann. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So I'm sharing the documents that we submitted.
Yes.
I think a photo is probably, sorry, I'm scrolling a lot here. A photo is kind of helpful of what happened here. So this large crane experienced a hydraulic explosion while lifting the building modules of 35 Dane Street up and dumped about 100 gallons of hydraulic fluid that sat there for multiple days. Basically right where the chicken coop is, this is the oil slick kind of in that area.
They would like to talk through, I think, the
Oh
plan.
yeah, okay, so
Conventionally, yeah, I'd like to, and how big is the coop?
this is the chicken, the remediated area. You can see the darker area. The coop itself is 4 by 4 feet. It's a very small coop. It is as close to our property line as possible. And then the run extends all the way to the fence line. It's just a fenced in run. It's not a structure. And so this is where the chicken coop is today.
Sorry, so where I see the black patch, that's 5, it's right on the lot line, and what are the dimensions of the land?
It's yeah, it's 4 feet wide by about 10 feet
I
long.
think 20 feet probably long, because it's 19 by 20.
Yeah, it looks like a parking spot would be.
Well, the fence sections are 6
9
foot,
by
so
19.
12, 14, 15 feet.
Okay.
Yeah, the fence, each fence section is 6 foot. So 14 feet maybe.
I would say 15 to 20.
And the coop is a structure. Do you have pictures of that?
Yeah, it's in the front left here. I'm sorry, I don't have a better photo of it, but it's a pre-built coop. It's 4 by 4 foot. And then the back of it, the chickens come out through a dog door and then go into the run.
So this structure is placed over the remediate area currently?
Yes, this is just during its kind of
Construction.
construction of where it went.
And then this area is completely fenced in, right? Because they're coming out of this structure. This is
Yeah.
their yard.
Yeah, they're completely fenced in, and they have very small mesh wire so that no rodents or other activity can get inside of it. And it's
That's also with the plan.
say that one more time.
You go to the plan, please. Your site plan.
No, the
Pictures
site-
are great. Thank you.
Okay. All right, we'll go up. Oh, there it is. So the square area is the actual 4 by 4 coop structure. And then the dotted blue line is the fenced in run.
That's I didn't know what I was looking at.
Sorry.
And the structure is on some kind of foundation. You can't just move it.
Once again, kind of the problem here is that the dirt is contaminated in our backyard, as well as some of the 35 Dane Street backyard. So this was the area that was remediated by the developer to relocate the chickens once our previous chickens had died from whatever they had dumped in our backyard. So in order to move the chicken coop, we would have to remediate the backyard, but the 35 Dane Street developer is no longer there to pay for that cost. So it lies where it is today due to the fact that it is the one area that is like fresh, clean dirt fill remediated.
And when you came to this agreement or compromise, nobody was aware of the zoning rules around chicken coops?
Our lawyers on both sides did not know how the easement boundaries matched to property line boundaries. It was not clear, since a chicken coop is in an easement owned by or principally owned by us, but on property that is 35 Dane, that do you have to then compare it to the 2 Village Terrace property line, or do you move that boundary out into the easement property line? That was the problem.
And fundamentally, this was one of the few areas they could dig down far enough to actually
Yeah.
remediate the soil. So in our backyard, and other parts of the easement, that's not really possible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that has a question right now? Andrew, do we have anybody from the public?
Yes, we have, this is Andrew speaking through you, Madam Chair. We have two members of the public with their hands up. First, we have Nachiket Kadakar. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. I'm going to allow you to speak.
Hi, unfortunately, this is logged in under my husband's account. He's here with me, but I'm Ann Dietrich. I am a resident of 35 Dane Street as well. And I just wanted to speak quickly in support of the comment that Oliver Turner made. I think it's really unfortunate that there was this experience that may have happened with the developer prior to the building being completed and to our taking occupancy. However, I don't think that has particular bearing on the current experience of our living with a chicken coop that's on property that is 35 Dane Streets. Even though there is an exclusive easement, we don't go on that land, but we do want it to be clear that that is an easement that was granted. And while it's an exclusive easement, it is still part of the 35 Dane Street lot. And so the lot line should be elsewhere. It shouldn't be, the Two Village lot line should be their lot line, not their lot line plus easement space. I just wanted to confirm that we agree that we have been negatively affected by its presence there. I don't think the cameras are working to affect the rodents because, again, we've had multiple pest control companies come in. We have rat convenience paths that are going in and out of the coop. So that rodent issue is really present for us. And I just also wanted to note that the way that the coop was built, has an effect on our property because one of the gates to the coop is actually on 35 Dane Street's property, which is a slight concern for us just because we don't want to have any sort of liability or issues coming from that. I don't think it's our responsibility to mitigate your claims of hazardous waste being dumped there. I think it's our right to request for the zoning law to be upheld and for our expectations around that to be upheld by the board. Thank you.
Thank you. And who else?
This is
Andrew?
Andrew speaking. Next, we have Nadia Zakaria, allowing you to speak. Give me 1 second. All right, you are all set.
Hello, yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm also a resident of 35 Dane Street, and I'd just like to echo my neighbor's concerns from Ann Dietrich and Oliver Turner. Completely agree that this is just a zoning issue. It is our easement, and this chicken coop should be on not on our easement, but on away from our property lines, and that needs to be corrected. It is not up to us to, we did not receive anything in writing when we bought the properties, stipulating anything that has been discussed today with regards to chemical spills or anything related to that. So I completely am in line with our neighbors here and request that the chicken coop be moved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chair Fontano, this is Andrew speaking. At this time, no other hands are up.
Okay. And it seems that, yes, Ann Fullerton, thank you. I'm sorry, Ann.
Yes, Madam Chair. So I just wanted to make a comment based on the information that was shared in response to Member Brockelman's questions. And I think that, in my opinion, while there is not an explicit agreement for a chicken coop to be allowed on the easement, there is an implicit one in that the developer did prepare a zone, a selected zone in that easement for that use. So, I think that regardless of whether or not it conformed to zoning, for the question about whether or not it was part of the agreement, the developer did prepare that spot for that use. Who was the former owner?
Ryan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to continue my colleague's point, the easement language indicates that as perpetual, that it runs with Two Village Terrace, and it is appurtenant to Two Village Terrace, and it conveys responsibility for the easement to Two Village Terrace condominiums. So as far as it being recorded with the Middlesex Register of Deeds and having perpetual enforcement as a result of that, unless it's renegotiated, all of that language seems to suggest that the Two Village condominium folks have responsibility for, that is, control over the easement. So that's why they've been presented with the code violations, because they do have responsibility over it. What is confusing, and I don't think we're going to get resolution about it tonight, is the question of the lot line and whether, based on the language of the easement, which is pretty strong language for an easement, whether that extends the lot line of Two Village Terrace around the easement or not. Our staff memo seems to indicate that they don't believe that that is the case. And secondly, what constitutes positioning of the item in violation on the easement that would ameliorate the code violation? If it is the responsibility of Two Village Terrace to use the easement as anyone would use a backyard, then the question is whether they have the responsibility to also make adjustments in the use of the easement to allow them to have a chicken coop and run that doesn't violate a zoning requirement, such as the setback. So I think we've got some open questions that I don't think are completely addressed in what we've heard so far, or in the data that we've received, the guidance that we've received in the staff memo. Perhaps, I don't know which staff member is responsible for this, but perhaps they can walk us through the memo in a bit more detail to help us understand that.
Sure, this is Steve Carey in the Planning Division. I wrote this memo. The memo addresses the violation that ISD noted, which was the location of the chicken coop. In ISD's interpretation, and I know we have Nick and Tanavica, the building commissioner, is now on, so I'd let him speak to it. The easement does not constitute a changing of where the property lines are. So the interpretation of it being a violation is its location relative to lot lines. And I think the most pertinent point of their of the violation is that it's not located on the lot of the person responsible for it. And I'm not sure if a agreement with a developer or the intention of a developer has bearing on what's laid out in the Somerville zoning ordinance, which dictates that the coop has to be located on the lot of the person responsible. And I guess I'd leave it to the building commissioner, or we could take time to try to get an interpretation from legal, but I don't know that an easement changes the definition of what is the 35 Dane Street and what is the Two Village Terrace lot. Hope that's helpful. And you know, we do have Nick and Tanavica here, who, if he wants to step on and give ISD's interpretation.
May I ask a follow-up through you, Madam Chair? W- you're familiar with the language of the easement, Steve? Right? Where it
Yes,
says
for all-
specifically, the specific language about the use of any use that is permitted use in a backyard. So if I may just speak for a hypothetical, could they put a swing set there? Could they put a hammock there? Could they put a garden there? I mean, which
If-
things are covered by the zoning ordinance and which are not?
Right. I don't know, of all the things you just named, I don't know that any of them have a explicit reference in the Somerville zoning ordinance that
Right.
they need to be located on the lot of the person responsible for that swing set or for that garden. But in the case of aviculture, it does have that.
Same with an accessory structure, if it wasn't an aviculture building?
If it was, it's just a question of whether or not it's explicitly addressed by the Somerville zoning ordinance. I mean, I really think I agree that the language of the easement is very strong, that it's, for all purposes for which a backyard is commonly used. And I think this may be just a legal question that I can't answer as to which takes precedence, that easement or what's written in the Somerville zoning ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Andrew, is somebody from legal here and is also inspectional services here now?
This is Andrew speaking. Yes, the building official is present. Nick is here. I don't believe anyone from legal is here at this time.
Okay, were we expecting somebody tonight?
This is Andrew speaking. No one from legal is here. In regards to someone coming tonight, I will follow up with a colleague.
Thank you. So, where is the inspectional? Nick, gonna come on board? Hi. Welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Hi,
Hi,
good,
Madam
welcome.
Chair.
Thank you for joining us. So, we had a few questions of which I might ask them to, this zoning people here to elaborate. Brian, you had a question, I think, for Nick, didn't you? Or who has a question for Nick? Ian Fullerton?
Well, Madam Chair, I mean, the
Thank you, Ian.
question about, whether the lot line gets extended by the
Use.
by the easement or not. Steve addressed that fairly well. I guess we could have refer it to the legal department for final clarification because of the nature of the language of the easement. But there's a prior question that I had posed to the folks of 2 Village Terrace that perhaps Nick can address, which is whether there had been an attempt to communicate about what they could do to ameliorate the problems of the code violations with respect to this placement of the chicken coop in the run, or whether there was, sort of either fix this, pay the fine, or whatever is the case in terms of the punishment. I'm sorry, I'm not being very clear, but the question is whether there's been some communication after the notice of the code violation regarding the problem of the placement of the chicken coop.
I have, through the chair, I have not had any direct conversation with the tenants or the owners of 2 Village Terrace. From the discussions that I've had with the members of the department, the resolutions were put in the letter. Just having a strong easement doesn't make zoning go away. If that were the case, then everybody would just write strong easements to make our zoning go away. So having that in there, doesn't change a use that's allowed or the way a property line is And again, with the easement, we have had this in other circumstances, not specifically a chicken coop, but somebody was trying to use an easement in order to have a closer parking setback. So in reviewing this with the law department and in practices for zoning, you can't use an easement to extend setback lines or property lines. That just gives ownership or rights to allow use of the property. It doesn't make your property bigger. It doesn't allow the setbacks to change. So that's what we were stating in this, is that you have the ability to move your chicken coop to be in the areas that are compliant. However, we are understanding that there seems to be some issues with the property in that area. So the next resolution is to come to the board to ask permission.
Okay. May I ask one follow-up question, Madam Chair?
Yeah,
Thank you, Nick. So if I understood what you were saying, no place on the easement would be satisfactory to the zoning ordinance in terms of the side setback violation.
right.
Okay.
That's what I got. And Fullerton, please. Ann Brockelman, you'll be right after Ann. She had her hand up. Ann, go ahead, please.
Yes, Madam Chair. So to Mr. Bell and Ms. Suter, when was this chicken coop built?
The chicken coop has been there since 2017.
That's when you got an original chicken coop. When was this one built?
It was in 2020, so it was the summer of 2020 that it was built. I can't remember the exact date, but I know we got our current chickens in August of 2020, and we had that coop at that time in that location.
Okay, the reason I was asking this question, which it's moot effectively, is because I was trying to figure out if the coop was built in this location under a prior zoning ordinance with different rules.
The chicken coop did move from our backyard starting in 2017 to this location, and only in response to the issues that we had from the developer dumping chemicals in the backyard.
Yeah, unfortunately, that doesn't matter for this question.
Got it.
Right. Thank you, Ann. Ann Brockelman.
So for me, there are two questions. One, are chicken coops allowed in any easements, right? And so that's one. Or is it because it's 3 feet from the line? And it sounds like chicken coops aren't allowed at all on any easement. It has to be on your property.
Right.
So I don't, so that's the main question, because we do sympathize, and we always do try to help. I'm sure you've gone through brainstorm possible solutions or degree of relief that you're asking us, right? Could you move it? Which is why I was asking about the dimensions. Could you move it 3 feet from the easement line? What could you do for some minimal compliance? Understanding that, there's hardship in pulling it up. That's why I asked if there's foundations, are they on, posts and sonotubes and as such. But it sounds like it's not allowed at all. That's what our finding is. Is that accurate?
Through the chair, yes, the way that the ordinance is currently written, it says that that the owner of the coop is supposed to be responsible for the ownership of the lot as well.
Maybe.
Thank you, Ann.
Maybe
Ann Brockelman still.
just a little thought. I mean, I think it's a different scenario if, I mean, of course, we can't change what happened, but if we were debating where could they put this coop because they have contaminated land, blah, 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 that, come to the board to ask where could they put it? Could they put an easement where the neighbors are okay with it? versus it's already there and it is in violation, so I'm having a hard time. Seeing that ISD did anything wrong in citing the violation. So I think to ask for a relief before the violation is different from, I don't think ISD was wrong in citing a violation. A violation does exist.
Right.
And I mean, I wish we could help you solve where you could move it, but the contamination and all that, that's kind of a different issue, but that obviously is very real for you.
Thank you, Ann. Let me just go to Mr. Bell for 1 second. Mr. Bell, you have something to say?
Yeah, I think to us, this is more of a hardship issue than the lot lines, because there was enough questions about this lot line or that lot line, depending on how you interpret it. For us, it was put there because that was the only spot that was remediated. And so I'm not disagreeing with Nick, but for us, I think the type of ZBA appeal that we would probably be looking at is more of a hardship appeal than it is a administrative appeal.
Thank you. Who else had their hand up? Was it Ann Fullerton or Brian? Brian?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's in fact what my question was going to be. If we make a determination not to accept the appeal, could they come back with a hardship variance seeking relief from the 3-foot side setback requirement? The problem still is whether the lot line constitutes, covers the easement or not. And that's going to be the problem the hardship variance request would be posed with. So I am one with my colleagues, though, and saying this is a rotten situation that they've been placed in. And they were sort of backed into a corner by the situation. But unfortunately, they are, as far as we can say, or at least I will say this myself, it is a violation of the zoning ordinance in terms of the side setback requirement and the placement of an aviculture structure that's not on the lot of the responsible party for the structure.
Right. Ann Fullerton, did you have your hand up again? No, okay. I'd like to ask Steve, where this is his case. Do you have an answer? I mean, I know legal's not here, but can you answer the question that Brian just posed? If I know it's number one, if they have the administrative appeal and it's shot down, can they come back for anything else, or do they have a 2-year period or anything like that, or can they withdraw and do a hardship? What's the story there? Do you know?
They could withdraw. I'm not sure there'd be a need to, because I wouldn't imagine they would be seeking to, put forward the same administrative appeal after getting this answer here.
Well,
in terms of
hardship. Yeah.
Right. In terms of a hardship variance, I don't know that there would be a way to grant relief to be able to essentially, use a neighbor's property. Generally, hardship variances are granted for, leniency from, dimensional requirements for activities or some sort of structure on your property. So, there may be a way forward if they were able to find a acceptable location on their lot for it. Then there could be potentially a hardship variance granted that gives them relief from, from side yard setback or accessory structure setback or one of those dimensional requirements. I think that's the best answer I can give at this point without knowing more specifically about, where they would want to try to locate it.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think there is a hardship variance route that would permit the current location of it. But I'd be glad to get an opinion from legal on that if that's something that the board desires.
Madam Chair, you froze.
Okay, how's this now? Thank you. I'm sorry. Nick, do you have anything else you'd like to add to this case right now?
No, Madam Chair, I think that's everything I've got.
Not at all. All right, thank you. All right. Is there anybody else, Andrew, that would like to speak to this case in the public?
This
The
is,
public portion?
yes, through you, Madam Chair, this is Andrew speaking. Frederick Hirsch has raised their hand, allowing
Okay,
Frederick to speak.
go ahead.
I just would like to point out that the people at 35 Dane never contacted the people of 2 Village Terrace to find out the history of the property, history of the degradation that occurred because of the construction of 35 Dane, and I think that's an important factor.
Okay, thank
Group
you.
know that.
If that's it, is that it, Mr. Hirsch?
That's it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Andrew, if there's no one else, is there anyone else?
This is Andrew speaking. There is no one else with their hand raised at this. No one in the public at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, so we'll close the public portion. And I'm gonna ask the board, are you folks ready to go forward tonight with a vote? Yep, I am. I'm sorry, Elizabeth Suter, you had your hand up, hon. What would you like to say?
Yeah, and I guess regardless of which way this vote goes tonight, it would be helpful for us to understand if there's also, I think we talked about the hardship variance option. It would also be helpful for us to understand if we can have extra time to do remediation and try and do remediation in some other area of our yard if that decision is made.
I think the original violation notice had a 14-day or 15-day time frame on it, which this was kind of months in the making of where the coops are currently. And so to move and prepare an area to make sure there's no rats or contamination where the coop, if the coop has to move, is kind of, it would take longer than 14 days. So it's a consideration.
Mr. Carey?
I guess I'd let Nick and Tenovica speak to that in terms of that 14-day time frame, or what the next step is for enforcement.
So if we take a vote tonight, hypothetically, and it's a no vote, what can they do next? That's what I think the question is, right? Yeah.
To you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
We can have conversations with the property owners of 2 Village Terrace if they are going to review alternate areas for the chicken coop.
Okay.
We can absolutely set up a time to talk with them and discuss the next steps. I don't want to specifically say what actions ISD would take after this vote, because again, I'd like to have the conversation and see what the potential resolutions are. We are not here to try and ruin anybody's day or take this out. So we're just trying to get compliance. So if we think that there's going to be a potential amicable resolution, we will help work towards that.
And tell me, do they have a certain period of time to get to see you about this? Do they have like a 2-week period, 3-week period, 21 days that they have to get themselves pulled together and come to you, or they go to the planning and apply, and then they have time to play around with it? I think that's their question. That's the only reason I'm asking that.
So through you, Madam Chair, yes, and again, depending on, we don't hold up applicants or penalize applicants if we are overworked. So if we have a long list of projects that we're working on, we don't penalize applicants for hour delays. But yes, if we get a request to meet within the next week or two, then we will arrange for that to happen and work through the processes. We don't need 100% plan at the moment. We just need to have a conversation with what the potential possibilities would be, and then determine what a time frame is.
Okay, thank you. You folks understand that, what you just said?
Yeah, I think so. I think my one remaining question is, we did try and call your office multiple times about the notice with the number on the notice. And we never got a response to that. And so I'm just wondering if there's some way to confirm the number, or if there's an email so that we have like a written record of trying to contact you, or if we need to go in person, just what the best way to get on record as soon as possible that we contacted you would be.
So the best way, through Madam Chair, through you, is to send an email to isd@somerville.gov.
Okay.
And that is the general ISD email.
Okay.
And that goes to myself, that goes to the deputy director and our ISD liaison, and we all see those. So that's the best way to get that seen.
Yeah, we
Also,
appreciate
I'll check into the phone calls too. That's something that we do get hundreds of phone calls and voicemails a day. So I do know that the admin staff go through that. So we'll check and find out where the phone calls ended up as well.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. Just want to make sure we can contact you and work together. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Nick. So, are you folks ready to vote now? Yes. Okay, I'd like the vice chair to please make a motion. Let's see what we have here. And yes, Ann.
Yes, I'd just like to remind my colleagues, because it's always counterintuitive. Motion be made to approve. And then you vote no to deny. It sounds like that's where we are. Okay.
No, it's no to deny, right?
Okay, so in the matter of 2 Village Terrace, ZP 24000056, I make a motion to approve the administrative appeal.
To approve it.
Yes.
Okay. Seconded by Brian Cook. All in favor to approve, please say aye. Ann Fullerton.
No.
Susan Fontano, no. Brian Cook.
No.
Ann Brockelman.
No.
Let the record show that it was unanimous for voting in the no, and that well, tonight especially, but Brian Cook is voting for Zach Zaremba. You guys, good luck as you go forward. And thank you for your patience. And I thank Inspectional Services and Michael and Elizabeth. Everybody handled themselves very professionally. It's a very passionate type thing, I feel. And good luck as you go forward, and hopefully maybe you'll have a meeting of the minds. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Next on the agenda is 16 to 20 Medford Street.
Madam Chair, may we have a short break, please?
Absolutely. It sounds good to me. How long, Mr. Cook?
5 minutes is fine.
5 minutes? Great. So it's, we have to have a motion, don't we? Can we have a motion at 7:28 PM? And Ian, could you please make a motion for us?
Yes. I make a motion to go to recess until, how about 7:35?
Beautiful. May I have a second?
Second,
Seconded by Brian. All in favor, please say aye. Ian Fullerton,
Aye.
Brian Cook,
aye.
Ann Brockelman,
Aye.
and Susan Fontano. Thank you.
Chair Fontano,
Yes, sir.
we all set?
Yes, sir. Waiting to
Okay.
hear from you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're back from our recess. It is 7:37. Correct me, do we have to vote on reopening?
Chair Fontano, this is a new case that needs to be open.
I understand that. Okay, that answers my question. All right, we're all back from recess. The meeting's in progress. The case at hand is new. It is 16-20 Medford Street. I'd like to ask Ann Brockelman, our vice chair, to open it, please.
Yes, 16-20 Medford Street, case number ZP 24-000090. Dmitry Vasilyev and Patricia Misuro seek an administrative appeal of the building official's issuance of a building permit B24-000161 and the building official's subsequent denial of a request for enforcement to revoke that building permit.
Thank you very much. The appellate's here.
This is Andrew speaking. Yes, I see Dimitri with their hand raised. I am going to promote them. I will
Welcome.
also promote the defendants.
Welcome, guys.
Hello.
Hello. And we have inspectional services here. Okay. And Valerie Moore. What is your role, Ms. Moore?
Good evening, Madam Chair. I am counsel to the property owner Somerville Living LLC.
Thank you. That's for the record. LLC. Mr. DiBiase, you are?
Good evening, Madam Chair. Thank you for your time. Hugo DiBiase, I'm part of Somerville Living LLC, the property owner.
Okay. Thank you. And Tanya Carrera?
Yes, thank you. Tanya Carrier, project architect for 1620 Medford Street.
So you're 1620, you're with the appellate, and the other two folks are with the defendant. Okay, great. So you folks get to go first. Now, I just want to say this. I'll give you all the time you need, but please don't be repetitious. We got your report. We've all read it. And if you'd like to highlight some things or make certain things clear to us. I'm also seeing on screen here, we have Emily Hutchings as well. And Steve, everybody's still on board. Thank you very much, Dang. So let's go forward. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having us. I know it's late. We really appreciate the process, being able to speak up. Is it all right we share? We do have a slide.
Yes, absolutely.
We'll keep this in mind. I think our slides are a bit lengthy, but I'll try to go through it faster so that you don't have to stay too late. So we have 4 issues at hand, and I know you read through this, so I appreciate. Thank you for doing that. So this is the 1620. You know, it's a 50-unit building, 50+ unit building with 12 parking spots, but that's not the problem. We want to go through the items that we found when we reviewed the building permit. So one is the curb setback. So this is the plan that we obtained from the ISD. This is the building from the top view, and I'm sure folks are familiar with it. It was included. We have it abuts 3 streets, or in fact 4 of them. This is the front of the building, and in blue are the curbs. So these are city curbs. And there's something called this curb setback, which is for the purpose of pedestrian traffic and so on. And in this particular zone, there's a 12-foot requirement. So the building can't be closer than 12 feet. And that setback, at least per Somerville zoning ordinance, should not be encroached upon. And the reason is because it is meant for trees, which are also required in this particular zone. And I know developers have put trees in the plans, but there are issues with the setback in the particular plans that they submitted that we found, which would make planting trees rather hard. So if I move on, we have these red areas, which are the curb setback that would apply here from the curb, not from the front property line. And they should be clear. They should be clear because they are meant to accommodate trees. And they extend across all the street areas. As you can see, there are 4. The back of it, actually, these 2 lines here abut property. So there are other neighbors here. But these here around the thing are actually abutting the curb, really meant for pedestrian traffic and the trees. So if I move on, this in blue is actually the overhangs of the building that's proposed. And you can see clearly that these are balconies and they protrude from the second story, from very, very right above the ground level and higher. So they are effectively projections out into this curb setback. And they're everywhere, and they certainly add a lot of square footage to the building because you kind of look like a mushroom a little bit, for sure, around the edges of the building. So, so if you think of the trees that are proposed and are required by the zoning ordinance, they're either large trees or medium trees, and we kind of put them from the top view. These trees would have a very difficult time to grow because trees have to be planted 3 feet away from the curb. So if you do the math, the remainder is just 9 feet. If you think of any tree, if you go outside and look at a tree, a large tree like a pin oak would in fact encroach into, or the balconies would encroach right into the middle of these trees often. They would go as far as 6 feet into the tree. So we're leaving 3 feet away from the tree trunk for the tree to grow. And these are large trees. So if you look, here's an example of the pin oak tree. And you can see it. So this is the radius. An average pin oak tree, even this like mid-size one, would have 26 radius. So, you know, if you were to plant this tree next to this effectively would have to cut off the whole side of the tree. So those curb setbacks are really meant to enable trees to grow as opposed to be completely cut in half. You can plant, and this is actually the building itself. That's the rendering that we have from the plans. You can have tiny trees, like tiny little trees, but you really can't have anything that the city supposedly we're supposed to get as part of this new construction as neighbors. So it's, you know, this particular oak tree would be taller than the building. I do not know how possible it could grow. And there was a discussion about, you know, what are the encroachments allowed for these setbacks? Well, for the curb one, for a good reason, encroachment, which means things sticking into the curb, are not allowed. Unlike the primary front, which was some of the response, primary front is with the front lot line. This is the curb, this is the sidewalk. And there's a reason why encroachments aren't allowed, so that we can have trees growing on the sidewalks. So yeah, that's kind of the first point. And this is actually the drawing coming from, I believe, from Valerie Moore, from the developers. And this shows actually the encroachments in orange. So you can see they are everywhere. Here it's a 5 foot out encroachment into this space where the tree would be. Here it continues around. It adds, I think, roughly about 1,000. It adds a lot. It adds a lot of square footage for sure. So, but we didn't do these projections. So that's the first zoning violation. My spouse will go very briefly through the second one. If there's any questions, but we'll just continue. Go ahead.
So the rear setback is something we have discussed during previous hearing. And so to illustrate, there are over here, there are 2 technically side lot lines. And I apologize that in our original letter to ISD, we added argument which turned out not to be true. These are side lot lines per SZO. However, the argument which we wanted to raise is that the Somerville zoning ordinance does not require rear setbacks to be necessarily attributable to rear lot lines. And so we claim that there is a required 10-foot setback from this lot line because it's opposing the primary front lot line. So this is how this area looks from the top, and you can see
Before
that
excavation.
it was before all the place is demolished. You can see and you can see it kind of like makes sense because, for example, this building over here, it really is basically almost zero space from this lot line, and like it just really calls for to just have some allocated space between these two buildings. It's okay not to have setback along this line because there is an alleyway, and which makes sense.
And I also want to bring up
Yeah.
that if you look here, there's no trees here, but there was a really big tree on this side. It was a very much loved neighborhood tree, and it was unfortunately cut, 50-year-old tree. So it certainly needs the green space. There is nothing that's green really.
This is how currently we believe that this is the setback that has to be honored. It is 10-foot setback opposing the primary front lot line, and the current overhang is here depicted in blue. And the why is that our opinion is that due to this drawing in the Somerville zoning ordinance, where lot like the ones of developers, a corner lot, which abuts 2 thoroughfares right in the corner, one marked the primary front, and the prescription is a D, which is rear setback, which is specified. However, this line over here was consistently determined by the Somerville building inspector as side. So that basically, this is why we think that the most consistent interpretation of this is that just the rear setback makes sense, just opposing of a primary front. That's all in the sense.
So just as a consequence of this, it would certainly shrink down the building. So I want to say we are not opposing the building. We just want it to be sized appropriately to abide by the same laws that I think every citizen of Somerville is supposed to follow. So the issue 5, just lot coverage. So the other thing I mentioned is that there's this thing, we call it the mushroom building, which means there's a stem at the ground level, and then it expands out. So I use that to show this is not the building. Here is just kind of to make folks understand what we mean by mushroom. So this is a MR4 zone, which requires you can build up to 90% of lot coverage, no more than 90, but up to 90. So up to 90, which means, the 10% is for green space. It's really meant, so you take your lot and you allocate 10% for green space. Now, mushroom buildings kind of go around this requirement by making the ground level be abiding, but then it's extending out all the way as much as possible. So I would say this building is very much a mushroom building, because if you look, it's exactly that. It may not show from the front, but if you look on the top, there's a lot of those protrusions. And those protrusions actually allow the developers to get a lot more square footage. So this is the green area here is the landscape area. And it's, well, if you think 90%, well, it's with that landscape and with this, which is these little crates, which are meant to be pavers, it's 10% is for the green space. However, when you actually look at how the building overhangs from the second story up, it's much less than 10%. It actually goes down to like 96% is covered by the building. And then maybe 4% is the remaining. So how, what can grow there? It's really tough. It's tough to even deal with water and everything else. Certainly it maximizes it, but it's a problem. It's certainly not quite what we thought, what I think zoning meant when they said 90%. So it's shielded from water. It's kind of like an umbrella effect. It's gonna dump it, and pavers are really not so great at absorbing it. But think of like your neighbors carrying an umbrella and you're next door, it's dumping all the water to you. It's a little tough, too. So there are these types of impacts. So certainly there's the stormwater handbook. There's a saying that, oh, the pavers have 0 coefficients, which means that they act like grass. Well, Mass Stormwater does not believe it. They say pavers are not the same. So this orange area here is meant to say, well, That's where the pavers are. I think it's included in that 10% required, minimum 10%. But we kind of don't quite agree. So we almost at the last point. And now we kind of zoomed in. So if you think Bedford, so this was that right side of the previous drawing. So it's right here. This is Bedford. So we zoomed in here. So I apologize. Very narrow street. I mean, if anyone's been there, it's 20 feet wide. There's like cars parked. You can't even park because then nobody can get through. Well, there's a plant, as you probably recall from last hearing, building here. There's this one. There's neighbors here who have cars. So it's really narrow. So it's very hard, very difficult to see for sure too if you're walking. So it just adds more traffic. No space for bicycle. Forget about that one. So it's just a lot of danger from traffic. It's already a very busy street. So this is the tree from the neighborhood, which we had. We don't have it, unfortunately, anymore because it was cut by the developers. I know there's people in our neighborhood who really love the tree and were very much crying when they just saw it cut one day. Yeah, so just a couple of things addressing the statements about procedural, that our request is too late. On that, there were three permits that developers obtained. They got the demolition permit, then they got the foundation permit, at which point we were very observant. I actually went to ISD and I asked, can I see the building plans? And I was told, no, you cannot, because they haven't pulled the building permit yet. So we couldn't even see the permit. And whatever was shown before, they said, well, that's not valid. We haven't approved it. So we did our best to really try, with all the things going on to actually try to work. And we actually, the moment we got the building permit, when it was approved in July, literally within 3 days, we spent that night looking at it, and we sent an email to the developers even before following the process to do the appeal with ISD, and said, look, we found these problems. You haven't yet done anything because you just finished your foundation. Please keep this in mind. Take a look. There are issues with these overhangs. Well, we got no response. So, we followed the process the best we could. We couldn't appeal a building permit before it was issued. So the moment it was issued, we followed the process. And, when we did go to ISD, we were given this letter back from Nicholas Antanavica and the team saying you have the right to appeal, which is what we are doing now, appealing not the foundation, but the building permit. That's what we are doing. This is just a copy of the notice that we actually sent it to developer even before we appealed the permit, because we didn't want them to lose money. We said, you have a foundation that actually is fine. There's no issue with foundation. It's perfectly fine. It's everything above the ground that's the problems. So, that it's frivolous. Well, I don't know. I think that this is an impact on the neighborhood when you really don't get trees with the building. I don't know what neighborhood is getting. With, as I mentioned, 50 unit, with 12 parking spots. Yeah, there's some notes about measuring curb setbacks. Well, we did do the right thing. We have consulted architects. We know curb setback is from the curb, and it does apply. We asked for them to trim it, to please size the building appropriately. So, we did try to send them notes, send them emails, give them heads up. We just were ignored. So there's a couple of forward-looking statements, and I'm just gonna almost, sorry to keep you here. I know Attorney Valerie Moore mentioned that, there's a housing crisis and the housing is urgently needed. Well, I think when we look at Somerville, this is the number of units available for rent. By the way, this building was gonna be for sale, but now it's going to be converted to rentals. So I think that was a plan in between. So that's why we're looking at rental units. There's like thousands. They're just not affordable. 1,400, 2,002. So this is a lot of units around the area. We are like here. Yeah, this is certainly housing is very expensive, but unfortunately there's a lot of vacant units, especially in large buildings, where the people who own them can afford to have like 50% or 30% vacancy rate. So, we are Somerville, as we know, proudly say, we do love our neighbors. We do like to look at other people's windows in some way. we are very densely populated. I don't know if it's something to be proud of, but so the housing, what there's been a bunch of studies about, doesn't affect prices too much because these are large buildings, not very high fill rates in them. They're just adding to congestion. So there's just more, there's just difficult to afford in general, but it's not the moms and pops, like few units is the big ones that are being built today. Also.
Madam Chair, Ms. Masira, I apologize for the interruption. I did want to jump in real quick with your permission, Madam Chair. I just
Yes,
wanted to
please.
note that policy matters cannot be something that the zoning board can consider in this case. So zoning, what the zoning goals are, what the community's goals are, they're not things that can be considered in this context. What can be considered is whether ISD has made an interpretation or administrative error, which are things that you've noted in your application. But I did just want to note that this is not something that the ZBA can consider when they're evaluating your application.
Thank you, Emily.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm sorry, we just kind of went along with what we heard from the attorneys. And I think we are, thank you, Emily, appreciate it.
Let's do this.
I did want to request too, I apologize again for the interruption. In the future, please do not share slides with personal information like emails, phone numbers, etc. That's private information that should not be shared on screen.
Oh, okay, I apologize. I see there was one email there. Sorry, that was not intentional. I think it's publicly available on the website too, but I apologize. So I think we are done. We are done. So it's just
important to say.
It's okay. It's all right. I think we are done. So we just would like to request to please, we are okay with building. Just please follow the law and consider the neighbors and the benefits to the neighborhood. And again, size the building appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so could you give us our screen back on? Thank you very much. Beautiful. Is there anyone here for the public? Andrew?
Chair
Let's
Font.
open up.
Andrew speaking.
Yeah.
Just, I know that the property owners of 1620 Medford are also here. And I'm not sure if you'd want them to speak before we open public testimony. I just wanted to bring that up.
All right. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam
Hello,
Chair.
Valerie. Yep.
Thank you. Once again, Valerie Moore from Nutter, McLennan and Fish on behalf of Somerville Living LLC. I really appreciate the board's patience and time this evening. I know you've had a long evening, so I'll try to be brief. And I will quickly share my screen with you. When we were last before you in August, I believe it was, we predicted we'd be back here in another month and a half after receiving the email that was shown on the screen earlier. And while I normally enjoy being right, this is not one of those occasions. The appeal in this case is simply too late. So unlike the project that the petitioners previously appealed before you, the project at 16-20 Medford Street underwent a very lengthy public hearing and review process before the Somerville Planning Board, with the planning department's involvement, with ISD's involvement, and with the design commission's involvement. So I've put together a rough timeline of that for the board because this project was first vetted with the neighborhood in October of 2021. After a public hearing process, the project received both a special permit and a major site plan approval, and I'll get to why that's really important in a minute. But neither of those decisions were appealed when they issued in 2022, including by the petitioners. When some changes were made to the project, 2 neighborhood meetings were held again before the public hearing commenced after going through an extensive and duly noticed public hearing process. Once again, no appeals were filed to either the amendment to the special permit for this project or the amendment to the major project site plan approval that issued here. Following that, demolition permits issued, and that's important in this case because before the demolition permit issued, notice was required to be sent out to the neighbors, including the petitioners. Similarly, when the demolition permit, before the demolition permit issued, there was a pre-construction meeting, which the petitioners were in attendance at. All of that took place in 2023. In April of 2024, the first building permit issued, and that's the permit that they've referred to as the foundation permit. And that's a really key date because the foundation permit, for as the architects on the board, I'm sure are well aware, is certainly dependent on the zoning relief that was previously granted, including and particularly the setbacks. No appeals were filed from that foundation permit that issued. When the second building permit issued in July, which authorized the remaining parts of the development, including the vertical building, that's when the petitioners filed their request for enforcement. And it was not styled as an appeal of the building permit. It was only styled as a request for enforcement. And that's really important because Massachusetts law is really clear that they can't do this and that the board doesn't have jurisdiction to hear this appeal. ISD agreed that this appeal was too late. So there are a couple of cases I want to point out for the board to help guide you in your decision. One of them is Rockwood versus Snow Inn Corporation. And that's a case from the Supreme Judicial Court where a city issued a special permit for a project, but the court later found that, there were other dimensional violations, and the court held that when a city issues a special permit, that's the last act. That has to come after all variances issue. So here, when the city issued a special permit, they were finding that all of the zoning dimensional criteria were met. And if they had found that they weren't met, we needed to get a variance before the city could issue a special permit. So the petitioner's opportunity to appeal and claim that the project didn't comply with zoning was when that first special permit issued. To the extent that changes were made to the project that altered any of the criteria the petitioners have raised, then the amendment to the special permit would have been the time to appeal that. Additionally, under Somerville zoning ordinance, to get a site plan approval, which this was a major project site plan approval, not a minor one done by the staff. So it was done at a public hearing, duly noticed that petitioners attended and participated in. Excuse me, part of that requires a finding that the project complies with all the other zoning criteria. So the opportunity to appeal on these issues long expired. It's a really short window of appeal for a really good reason, because when a developer goes through the extensive public hearing and outreach process for a special permit and site plan review, the whole point of going through that is to find out all of the issues that the petitioners have raised this evening and to address them. Things like traffic and parking, like they tried to raise, were addressed in site plan review. They were addressed during the special permit hearings. It's simply too late to raise these issues now. Connors versus Zanino is really clear, again, from the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts, that when petitioners know a building permit has issued, they can't later file a request for enforcement because they could have filed an appeal during the appeal period. That's why we talked about the fact that this project went through so many steps to make sure that when its permits issued, they were given notice and they were aware of that and they attended the pre-construction meetings. They had their opportunity to appeal. It was when the special permit issued or when the amendment issued. At the very last opportunity, it would have been when the foundation permit issued. They are simply too late to do that this evening. And I've also included Murchison versus Zoning Board of Appeals of Sherborne here, really, that's just an example, but there are many, many Massachusetts cases speaking to cities that bifurcate their building permits into a foundation permit and a vertical building permit, and the appeal is always taken from the foundation permit. They do not get to wait until the vertical building permit issues. And that's really important because at that point, construction has progressed really far. We're no longer in a place where there's level ground, there's a giant hole in the ground. The foundation has been constructed, steel has begun to be put in. When these appeals are filed this late, it has real consequences, including significant increases in cost, delays in construction. And in this case, if we are not able to complete construction, it will delay the ability to close out remediation of a contaminated site with the Department of Environmental Protection. This is a significant problem, and this is exactly why they needed to appeal this years ago when the special permit issued, to the extent that they felt that these claims had any legs. I'm going to turn it over in just a moment to the project architect to go through why these claims are completely baseless to begin with. But I do want to emphasize for the board, where they failed to timely appeal, the board should just deny their appeal based on the fact that it is too late. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tanya Carrier to walk through very quickly the bases for why the specific zoning violations they've alleged here are completely meritless.
Okay. Great. Thank you, everyone. Tanya Carrier from Kelso Design, the project architect. I have 3 very brief slides, which somewhat duplicate of the appellant, but just to show you the project site overview, Google Earth image. We do front on 4 streets: Bedford Street, South Street, Medford Street, and Warren Street. And that's a bit unique for a site. So we do have 4 fronts on our site. And to illustrate the setback requirements along with the lot line designations, as I mentioned, we have 4 street sides, one of which is a primary front. That would be Medford Street because it is a pedestrian designated street. That automatically makes that your primary front for the ordinance, with the other 3 sides as secondary fronts. And the lot line in question is this lot line between 51 Warren Street and our property at 1620 Medford Street. A rear lot line is defined as any lot line which is parallel to or within 45 degrees of being parallel to a front lot line, unless that lot line is a side lot line of a abutting lot. In this case, you can see that 51 Warren Street fronts directly on Warren Street. Here's a photo of the building as it sits today with its front door. So we have their front side there, and we have their side yard facing our lot. So therefore, it is a side lot line of an abutting lot, so it cannot be a rear lot line. So that would be a side lot line. And these lot line designations have been the same since we started the process in 2021, and even before that when we were meeting with planning before we started the project publicly. And for our next slide, which I think you've seen, so this is our ground floor footprint. You can see shaded in dark red. And what this slide shows is in yellow. This is the area within our property lines, not on public property. So we do have 12-foot curb setback on all 4 street sides at the ground level. So you can see our ground floor is set back 12 feet or more on all 4 sides. And above, we have projecting permitted building components, which consist of bays and balconies, which are items you can add on to the building specifically within the ordinance to give some undulation to the facade. So we have those, and they are all set well behind our property line. None project over the property line. So while the streetscape is widened at ground level, We have the projecting elements, and they're shaded here, but some of these are balconies and some are bays. And the exact setbacks are, let's see, on Bedford and Medford Street, they're set back at least 2'3" from the property line at all points. On Warren Street, they are set back 2'7", and then on South Street, they are set back further at 6'11" at the closest point, and then fanning out to even 7'3" at this point. And we are proposing, I don't have a slide to it, we are proposing 12 new street trees and 11 additional trees in the rear, which were all sized by the landscape architect to fit within the streetscape. And we work closely with the city to select those trees, and many different meetings throughout the process. They actually change types and work back and forth on the dimensions of the tree wells and how that would work with the building. And then just lastly, regarding the lot coverage, the lot coverage for the project was measured per the definition found in the ordinance, which is the lot coverage of a structure is measured from the outside of the exterior walls at the ground story, including covered porches and other building components. So lot coverage is measured at the ground story. Additionally, we selected a paver, which we've used on many other projects, some of which construction's already complete. And the manufacturer indicates the runoff coefficient in their literature with a lot of technical documents there. And that's how we've calculated it. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Valerie, if you have anything additional.
No, thank you. With that, we're happy to answer any questions the board has.
Okay, thank you. Let's go right to the public portion.
This is Andrew.
Andrew,
speaking.
thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, we have one person with their hand up, Adam Freeman. I'm allowing you to speak.
Hello.
Hi, folks. Thanks for having me. I'm Adam Friedman. I live at 18 South Street, Unit 1. So I'm actually one building over from Patricia and Dimitri at 16 South Street. I want to mention that Patricia and Dimitri and I actually had our own dispute over their own construction about 10 years ago. So I come to this from a standing of, we were kind of opponents on either side of an issue similar to this. But I feel so strongly about what's happening that I'm happy to be aligned with them on this and opposing the current situation. I've seen, and I'm more than willing to go as far as we need to go to appeal this all the way to the state land court. Because I understand that land court plays a good role as being a disinterested enforcement agent to ensure that our neighborhoods are protected and zoning ordinances are upheld. I bristle a little bit at only having 2 minutes to chime in, given that I'm a very close abutter to this situation. So I'll try to be brief here, but what I've seen as a trend is this notion to absolutely maximize space, to build as many units as possible, which is totally understandable. It's the job of this body to ensure that they're conforming to the law. And I think Patricia and Dimitri, I applaud them for bringing this case, and that we need to shine a very strong light on this. My understanding is factually, there's some discrepancies with what the attorneys have presented, trying to claim that the filing is too late. And that's the major substance of their opposition, is quite telling. That there's actually serious substantive problems with how they're failing to conform to the requirements and ensure that our neighborhoods are friendly and walkable and have trees and have green space, and we're not over urbanized and we're not turned into the next Kendall Square.
Thank you very much. Anybody else, Andrew?
Chair Fontano, oh, yes, Susan Silverman, allowing you to speak.
Ms. Silverman?
Am I unmuted?
Yes, you are.
Oh, great. We are on the back of the property. This mushroom will just about almost overhang our driveway. It's going to create problems with water runoff, etc. And certainly will interfere with what we were promised as, oh yes, green space and trees. And speaking to Mr. DiBiase and other owners of the project long before this was built. Oh yes, we were sure there would be trees and green space. Obviously, this is not the case. It's certainly not what we were led to believe. The other issue is being ignored has come quite through for a number of things. I left a message, a voicemail with Mr. DiBiase's office, and followed up with an email. It is impossible to see approaching traffic when trying to exit Bedford Street onto South Street. There have been a number of close calls. I myself almost got hit by an oncoming car, and I've requested that some of the signage be taken down from the chain link fence surrounding the property on that corner, as it has on the corner of Warren and Medford Street. This has been ignored. I have received no response. I'd like that to be addressed, as would all of us who try and exit that corner onto South Street. Yeah, this is very frustrating because I've owned condo in at 7 Bedford Street since 2013. I check my mail regularly, and I did not receive the kinds of notices that have been described by the attorney. That's about all I have to say. Being ignored and misled seems to be the theme on this project. So thanks for letting us, giving us voice. I think that's it for me.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
This is Andrew speaking. I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time, Madam Chair.
All right, I'm gonna give this another couple of minutes for the public portion, and I'm gonna go to our board to see what questions they might have. Anybody have a question they want to pose right now? No? Are you ready to vote tonight? Brian?
Thank you,
Hands
Madam
up.
Chair. Through you to Emily, who I believe prepared the staff memo. Is that right, Emily?
Yes.
If the defendant's claim that this is too late is correct, why is this even before us?
Madam Chair, through you, we did not evaluate this application in that context. We put this forward to you. All applications are put forward to the board, and if the board determines that it is appropriate to deny the administrative appeal on the grounds that it is too late, then that is the prerogative of the board. We as staff cannot say, no, we're not putting forward this application because it is too late.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have a comment? Is it something you want to think about? Or are you ready to vote tonight?
Madam Chair, through
Yes,
you,
Emily? Yes.
I also just want to note that Building Inspector Nick Antenovica is still here. If there are any questions about interpretations or concerns that might be for him.
Oh, great. Thank you so much for pointing that out. Does anybody have a question from the inspector? No? Nick, do you have anything you want to add to this to help us in our decision making?
To you, Madam Chair, no, we put forward our response, and our response also had rebuttals to all of the items in there. So I think the response speaks for itself.
Okay, thank you so much. Ann Brockelman, Ann Fullerton, anything? Yes, Ann Fullerton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, this is to the applicant, so, or actually the appellant.
The appellant, yeah.
Yeah. Why did you decide to, why did you take the recourse that you did? Meaning when the building permit was issued, why did you not appeal it versus asking for ISD to, for an administrative appeal? Why did you not go to the next level?
Well, when the building permit was issued, that's the process. So first you send the request for enforcement to ISD when the building permit. And as I mentioned, we were not furnished with building plans prior to that. We asked for it. We were told you can't appeal it because it's not final. The building permit hasn't been issued yet, so wait. When it's issued, at that point we did, and we followed the process as we understood it, which is the building permit is issued, we get the plans. There was preliminary plans, I agree with this, but the special permit was asked about the parking. So we were in these hearings, but we were fine with the parking. We were told the final plans, the building are not there, so there's nothing to appeal until the building permit is issued, which is what happened. That's when we went to ISD first, to Nick's team, appealed the items we had, and then we followed through with the ZBA board, which we understood was the process.
Yeah, we thought that this is the process how to appeal, basically.
Yeah, sorry.
That's, yeah.
Yes,
So,
Ann.
follow-up question to Mr. Antonovicka. So is, for my own edification, is the process that you asked for ISD administration to enforce and then you escalate to an appeal, or did they not get correct direction?
Through you, Madam Chair,
Yes.
people can appeal anything they want to at any time. There aren't any specific rules. People can file anything regarding, and I'm gonna look into the conversations that were actually had about what was told and what was given, because if it's public record, we give people stuff. So if we had plans, they should have been given, and I will look into that. But again, if people have a question, one option is to submit a request for enforcement to the building inspector. If I deny or we refuse to do the request, then the next step would be to go to the board. But it is not a required step to ask me for enforcement.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Brian?
I'm actually confused because the special permits are not issued by ISD. They're
No.
issued by the planning board. Are there means to appeal the issuance of a special permit by the planning board?
Through Madam Chair, yes, there are. There's a 20-day appeal period once it's voted on that goes to the clerk's office, and it's publicly noticed, and you have that whole window to appeal any part of that decision or the whole decision.
To whom do they appeal?
To the planning board.
Madam Chair, through you, appeals of board decisions go to the land court.
Oh, sure.
But Nick is correct. In this case, it was the planning board that made the decision. They could appeal that. It could go back to the planning board, but then the next step would be the land court.
What? And where, for the record, did you folks go to appeal that?
Sorry, are you talking about the initial special permit?
The special permit that the planning board approved. I don't have the date in front of me right now. When you saw you didn't, when did you go to whom and when did you appeal the special permit?
The special permit only outlined parking as the only thing that was sought relief for parking. We did not appeal the special permit around parking because it did not include anything around the building itself. It was just about the parking relief. So we had no way to know what the final building will be, nor we were shared any plans because we were told the final building will come when the building permit comes. So we couldn't, there was nothing to appeal for us because it was not against the parking.
When does the attorney know this, or does Emily know this? The special permit that the planning board approved, when was that? And for what?
Madam Chair, through you, I believe it was on the timeline. Oh, sorry, I see that Andrew has raised his hand.
Yeah.
Chair Fontano, through you, I was actually the case planner for this project when I was going through site plan approval and the special permits. Just to confirm, the dates that the applicant showed on their presentation are correct. I'm actually looking up the dates right now myself. There's two special permits that are actually obtained, one for the residential component and then the other for the parking relief. And then there was and then a major amendment to that site plan approval.
If I could add to that, in order to apply for both that special permit and the site plan approval, we certainly had to file a full set of plans that showed what the building would be and showed the site layout. All of the issues that have been raised by the petitioners this evening were certainly included on those plans. Stormwater is something that is reviewed as part of site plan review. All of the issues they have raised are part of that review. So they were included on those plans that were certainly public record as part of that proceeding.
And do you know the date on that?
So for the special permit and major site plan approval that first issued, that was September 2022. And for the amendment to the special permit and the amendment to the site plan approval, those were July of 2023. And all of those decisions were appealable directly to either the Superior Court or the Land Court under Chapter 40A 17.
Okay. And when was the first time these folks applied? For the...
If you mean Somerville Living LLC, when it first applied for its permits that I believe would have been in 2022, although the first public meetings were held in 2021, but the applications were submitted in 2022.
Okay. All right. I'm losing I lost you guys visually. I can hear you. 1 second, please. You can continue speaking. Is anybody raising their hand? They have a question?
Madam Chair, through you, this is Emily Hutchings. Brian Cook has his hand raised.
Thank you. Brian, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's just this board's opinion that questions of site plan approval and special permits were obviously not of concern to the appellants at the point where there might have been an opportunity for them to appeal was the issuance of the permit for the foundation, as it's called. And the others seem like those were opportunities to provide input. They provided their input and it proceeded as the planning board decided to proceed. So I think it's a little bit misleading to suggest they missed all of the opportunities. What they missed was to appeal the foundation, but they didn't even think the foundation was a problem until they saw the plans for the entire building finalized and the building permit issued. So it's just this member's opinion, the zoning board member's opinion, that it's not too late, whether any of their claims constitute questions about the building official's procedural decisions, whether it was an error on the part of the building official in response to their communication with the building official is where I think we should focus our decision about their appeal.
Oh. All right. I just realized what happened to me here. Inbox. Be patient, I'm sorry. Sheep is. Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that. I apologize. So are you folks ready to vote tonight, or do you have more questions you want to think about this? What's your pleasure?
Madam
Madam
Chair.
Ch-
All right, first off, I'm going to close the public. Andrew, is there anybody from the public that did not get a chance to speak?
I see Adam Freeman has his hand raised again.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Freeman, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much
Yeah.
for hearing me again. I just
Yeah.
want to note, just from a procedural level, I just hope that you're allowing the appellant to speak freely as you've allowed the counsel for the developers to speak freely as if they're part of the ZBA board deliberations, which I found interesting. Secondly, it just sounds like there's some factual questions around timeline, and maybe if everyone gets aligned on that, then it'll be very clear what's going on. But there were clearly a lot of nodes where things were changed. There was a major amendment way late in the game, and you all know this happens quite routinely. There's one plan that things start out as, and then things evolve over time. So obviously, to hold the appellant responsible for tracking a 2 to 3 to 4 year long project and make sure that they're watching it like a hawk is an undue burden on the public. And it's really, it still speaks to this idea that, developers doing everything they can to maximize their interest. And it's already clear that there's been some neglect of our needs in the community. So I hope that we proceed carefully and respect the health and safety and well-being of the community. I also did not speak enough on the issue of the blind turns. That turn on Bedford and South is absolutely very dangerous. And if we have a mushroom building that's cutting right over those sidewalks, it's going to be very dicey to turn on and off both of those streets. And I'm particularly concerned about that. So I just want to weigh in on that issue as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew, is that it on the public?
This is Andrew speaking. Yes, that is correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, so at this time, I'd like to close the public portion of 16 to 20 Medford Street and go directly to the board for more comments or questions they may even have. For the, yes, Emily?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just
Emily
wanted
Hutchins.
through you, I just wanted to take this opportunity to remind the board that there are findings that will need to be made regarding any determination. So whether it's about timing, whether it is about the specific arguments for zoning compliance or lack thereof, the board should provide some analysis and findings for their decision.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's something we've been working on. I take a little umbrage at Mr. Friedman's shot that we didn't give the appellates enough time to speak. We always have, we always do. They came with their papers for their presentation, and I don't think I cut them off on anything. I will give you um, 5 more minutes to say something that you didn't feel you already said. If you've already said it, please don't. You know, we've got the reports, we've read through the papers, it's very detailed, a very good presentation. We understand it. So I will give you as a courtesy, 5 more minutes as we're deliberating and thinking about what's going on. Do you have something you'd like to say?
I think it's for
No,
us.
it's fine.
Oh. No, it's for us. It's for us, right? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry,
Yes.
misunderstood. Well, I think we covered everything. I would just add to the fact that the process has been quite difficult to follow. We did our best to follow it. We followed the process as we understood it. You know, there was the foundation permit, there was the demolition, then the foundation, and what we trusted was what we heard from the Inspectional Services Division, which is you can't appeal it until it's the building permit. So we did our best to follow the process, but as a lay citizen, it took a lot of figuring out. I can't imagine a regular person being able to, meaning somebody who doesn't put in heart and soul into trying to help the neighborhood, being able to do it. So that's just, we did our best. It was not malicious. We tried to communicate. So that
I hope you appreciate that the bar is really high
To appeal.
to bring this to appeal, because there is so many deadlines and we need to be watching, and it's really hard. We are not experts. We are not attorneys, right?
we
And
don't
the
have an attorney
procedural-
here because
Yeah.
it would be very high bar for us to afford it again.
It's really hard to adhere to all
On the-
procedural requirements for this, which are kind of seems
Yeah.
like enormously stacked against this kind of appeals.
It's
And
tough. And all we are looking for, we still fine with the building. We just would like it to be trimmed so that those trees could grow and, you know, the neighbors and us can, everybody can enjoy it. So it's really about shrinking the project down within what's required. So that's really our objective. You know, have some trees. But that's it. And we, you know, if there's any questions for us. Thank you. Thanks for giving us the extra time. Appreciate it.
Okay, there, I can see everybody else moving, but the pellets, I can't hear them, or they froze on me.
Madam Chair, through you, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay,
and I
I
can see
believe
everybody else moving.
I believe the appellants have finished their
Oh, okay.
statements.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so, are you folks ready to vote tonight, or do you need some time, or do you want anybody to get back to you with any more information? Ian Brockelman?
Madam Chair, I guess. When
Ian,
I,
you're frozen on me. There you go.
Can you
Ian,
hear
could you
me?
repeat yourself, please?
when I look at each dimensional issue raised and the ISD's response to it, I can't find fault in the response. Yes, the building is maxed out. But the response is pretty thorough, and it's an issue of determination, right, of rear setback, a rear lot line. Again, but I don't see any specific things that I object to in ISD response regarding dimensional requirements. So that's where I stand.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else want to comment? No? Okay, you ready to vote? Yes, Ann Fullerton?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for the record, I am very sympathetic to the neighbors. But I am also not particularly compelled by the specific zoning issues that were raised. And again, I'm sympathetic to everybody wanting a wonderful neighborhood, but I do feel like the zoning issues raised are not were responded to appropriately. And at least from my point of view, I would agree with Member Cook that I don't, while it's very, very inconvenient at building permit, if you have a multi-phase permit at your second phase permit for somebody to appeal it, I don't feel that it's too late, because I know as an applicant in the past, there are limitations to information shared for various reasons, whether it's developed or not, in different phases of approval. So I think that sometimes the first time the community sees everything is at permit, or has access to everything is at permit. So I do feel that the appellants were potentially given bad information about next steps or how to walk through their appeal. But again, for whether or not for the issue in front of us, whether or not ISD's determination or the request for administrative appeal is appropriate, I don't find that the zoning issues compelling.
Okay, thank you. And when we take our vote, Ann Brockelman, you're gonna have to specify these things that you said, Cook said, and Fullerton said. Can you encapsulate those right now? And so when you make your statement in your motion, Brian, yes, Brian Cook, please.
I can help. I mean, if you go to the analysis in the staff memo,
Yeah.
I think we can make findings with respect to building setback and building components being compliant as determined by ISD.
Yeah.
That's number one.
Yeah.
The rear setback requirement has been met as per ISD's determination.
Right.
The gross floor area is properly calculated as per ISD's determination.
Mm-hmm.
And lot coverage has been properly calculated as per ISD's determination.
Okay, beautiful. So in the staff report, we have 1, 2, 3, 5 that we'd like to put into our motion, correct? Brian, did I get that right? 1, 2, 3,
Yes.
and 5?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was trying to use the language rather than just the numbering of them.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. And do you see that in the staff report?
I'm looking at that as well. Yes.
Thank you. Page 3 and 4. So for the record, we're gonna take our vote tonight. The vice chair is clerking and she's putting together the verbal presentation. And we're gonna take our vote. When you're ready and you tell us.
Well, should we just march through or should we rehearse?
Emily?
Madam Chair,
you-
through you, I think you've made the findings that are necessary. So if you want to make a motion, then I think that's
Okay.
sufficient.
Good, thank you. Okay, so, Vice Chair Clerking, would you please make a motion on the matter of 16-20 Medford Street, that's ZP 24000090.
Yes, in the case of 16-20 Medford Street, I make a motion to approve the administrative appeal of the building official's issuance of the building permit and the building official's subsequent denial of request for enforcement to revoke that building permit.
That's good,
Second.
Emily?
With the
Seconded.
findings as established by the zoning board?
Right,
Yes,
and the,
with the
I'm
findings
sorry,
established by the zoning board.
referring to the staff memo, the staff report of October 3rd, 2024.
Yes, as listed in the analysis provided by the staff report of October 3rd, 2024, referencing inspectional services letter, subject line request for enforcement dated August 8th, 2024, which outlines the same items using the same numbers.
Do we need to say, referring to rear yard, referring to the building setbacks?
Madam Chair, through you, I
Yep.
think what's already
Yes.
been stated
That's
is
beautiful.
sufficient.
Good, thank you. Thank you, Ann. May we please have a second on the motion?
Second.
Thank you, Ann. So, you said that we vote yes. Ann Brockelman? Is that right, Emily?
My vote would be no.
No.
Madam Chair, the motion was to
I-
approve the administrative appeal. No votes have been taken yet. You
Okay.
are to call the roll.
Okay. Ann Brockelman,
So my vote would be no, to deny the appeal.
right. Ann Fullerton,
No.
Brian Cook,
No.
and Susan Fontano, no. Let the record show that all four members of the board voted no for the administrative appeal of 1620 Medford Street. Thank you. Now, any other business here? 1 second, please. Yeah. Back. Here we go. I see no other business here this evening. Does anybody have anything they wanted to cover tonight or discuss? No? Okay, hearing none, I'd like to have a motion to close the meeting tonight.
Yes, I make a motion to adjourn the meeting tonight.
Thank you, Ann. Motion to adjourn by Ann. May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Brian. All in favor, please say aye. Ann Fullerton,
Aye.
Ann Brockelman,
Aye.
Brian Cook,
Aye.
and Susan Fontano, aye. Let the record show it was unanimous. Thank you, everybody. We had some interesting cases tonight. Thank you, planning staff, everybody there. Emily, Christian, Andrew. Where'd Steve go? He's gone. And I do respect the city people coming out tonight, inspectional services in particular. Thank you, everybody. Good job. Thank you. Good night.
Have a good night.
Good night.